storytellers, but I got a D in English. I knew we had to do things differently, but I didn't feel qualified. This was the moment I felt the most unqualified and the most scared in my whole career, was at this moment where I wanted to go from somebody who just serviced people really well and made their stuff look great, to someone who was going to start to control what came out of the mouths of my clients, and it was terrifying. So what I did is we decided we need to become storytellers, and that was the big reinvention where that trip to India was such a pivot point for me. Because of the power of the spoken word, I had so much respect for it. You know, I just had so much respect for its power that I actually felt like terrified. And then at the same time, a guy named John Battelle, who you guys are partnering with soon, he said agencies need to become publishers and publishers need to become agencies. And I was like, dang, that's true. You know those moments where it's like, it just rings inside of you is true. So I was like, I need to fashion my agency into publishers. I want to be a publisher of content. Now, that sounds like, yeah, but we're talking 2007. Like, this is when Google was just out, kind of a thing. It's been there for a year. So this was like a big thing back then. So I published my first book, Slideology. And this book is much more simple. You can actually see through my work, especially from the next one, how much stronger I got. It's almost like you get to watch me develop as a student. So this one was easy for me because I got to use very descriptive language to talk about design. If you guys are familiar with John Maida, who was the president of RISD, and he serves on the board at Kleiner now, he said he likes to give this book away because it put design into business language, and it made a business case for why design is important to companies, and why companies that value design perform 4 times more return to shareholders if they invest in value design. So it's really, and it was kind of easy for me because it was almost like an anthology of what we've currently been doing. I was kind of reporting about what the firm currently does. So the big surprise for me, which Wendy has been holding my hand as I walk along this new journey, was the phone started to ring for training when this book came out. And I was kind of like, I'm a capitalist, I could do training too. And so we built a training organization. Well, that's a completely different model than an agency model. Completely different, and I needed a different structure. And that's where Wendy's just completely came alongside me and walked me through and became an advisor on my advisory board. Well, that's amazing. The training organization is completely profitable, which is nice. And then that's when I started to go on the journey through the spoken word. I really wanted to talk about storytelling, and I felt like I got my chops through Slideology. So then I started to study the greatest speakers, the ones who had really changed the world the most through what they said, through memorable things that have become part of our history. They've gotten embedded in our folklore, and I wanted to know, what did they say, why did they say it, how did they say it? So as a CEO running a company with 2 distinct business models, I'm getting one thriving and gestating a new one, the training business. I decided to write my next book around storytelling specifically, because now I feel like I'm ready. I've become a writer. As an entrepreneur, if you're really committed, this meant I got up at 4 a.m. I wrote from 4 a.m. to 11 a.m., and then I did my real job from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Now, I was an empty nester, and that's what I think gave me kind of the bandwidth to write my first book. Was my son had gone away to a little boarding school. He's actually a gifted music prodigy, so anyway, that's a whole other story if you want to pick my brain about that. But anyway, I got to write Slideology, and then I dove into Resonate, and becoming a student of story completely changed my life. When you understand story structures, you understand a coping mechanism for life. Because the basic story structure is this really likable person who goes through terrible hardships to hell and back, and it changes them. So I realized that that's what my life had been. It was like I was made for such a time as story. I was made to be a storyteller because of everything that I'd been through. And it's when someone has a boring life, they're not a great cocktail party guest. You know, it's when they've really, gone through it that it makes a great story. So I spent 2 years just studying story, Eastern story structures, Western story structures, really understanding why they work. Why is it that when you're a presenter talking, it's boring, but then you're a storyteller and everyone's heart is racing? Why is that? Just because you put slides between you and the audience, everything becomes totally boring. And I knew there would be a way to find that answer through storytelling.